Okay. Well, Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great. Well, look, I'm so excited that you were able to join for a lot of reasons, not just because it's always wonderful to catch up with you, but you were down in Florida. You were in Palm Beach for the election. Tell us what it was like to be there and what was the feeling.
It was obviously amazing. It was historic. Donald Trump won so decisively, just a total repudiation by the American voters of the failures of the last 4 years. So obviously the energy it was joyful, it was happy, and just there was a sense of relief, honestly, that this country is going to be getting back on the right track, and that really this was not a close or drawn out election. It was decisive, and Donald Trump has a clear mandate now to govern and to reverse the policies of the last 4 years.
Yeah, and I think that sense of relief was felt by all of America. I really do, and it is very exciting of what is ahead of us, nationally speaking, of course, but also as folks start digging in and we shift from election night very quickly to transition. There was a big announcement yesterday that he has named his White House chief of staff. It's going to be Susie Wiles. I'm sure you saw that news. But what does that tell you when you see that President Trump hired someone like Susie Wiles to be his White House chief of staff?
Well, first of all, it tells me that so many of the narratives we've heard about President Trump and the people who work for him are false. We heard Mark Cuban, who was a top Harris surrogate, say in the days just before the election that Donald Trump doesn't surround himself with any strong or intelligent women. What an insulting comment to so many of us, me, you, every other strong, intelligent woman that worked for President Trump. And,
Right.
Of course, he nominated the first female White House chief of staff. That's historic in and of itself. So I think it speaks to the fact that President Trump actually does elevate intelligent, strong women, and that he's done exactly that here. He had women running and managing both of his successful campaigns, Kellyanne Conway in 2016 and now Susie Wiles in 2024.
Yeah, and it's pretty quick that he has announced this. I think it flies in the face of a narrative that is already building. If you look on any of your traditional mainstream sites, they're already trying to talk about disarray or not being ready to go. And I think the president announcing so quickly and decisively, in the same way the American people delivered their decision on election night about who's going to be his White House chief of staff, I think that shows not only is he ready to go, but he has a strategic plan. Things are going to be a little bit different, a little more organized this go round, and that means that delivering on the various promises that he has made to the American people and that we need to get this country back on track, that's going to happen. It's going to happen much more efficiently and much more effectively than I think a lot of people would give him credence, and certainly what the left is going to try and push over the next few weeks and months leading up to his actual inauguration.
Well, experience is a great teacher, and this is a president and, his team has really been through hell over the last 4 or more years, where even from the moment he undertook his first campaign, he's been under attack, under investigation, under slander. They've thrown everything at the book, including, as we know, a bullet that narrowly missed his head. And so that kind of being under siege like that, and really from the day we started the administration the first go-round, we were under attack. And so I think this is a president and a team that has learned how to be nimble, how to be organized, and they've learned who to trust, who not to trust, and just, that kind of experience, I think, has been a great teacher, and they're going to put those lessons to use.
Yeah, battle tested, I think, is a really good way to characterize it. Sam, one of the things I want to touch on leading up to the election, you put yourself out there, you went into some not so friendly news situations, and you were adamant that President Trump was going to get more of the female vote than folks were willing to admit, certainly in those news situations that you were in. How did you have a sense of that? And give us just a little bit of a readout of what actually happened.
Yeah, I think in the wake of this election, I think one of the data points that's clear is that this marked a significant realignment in the traditional coalitions that Democrats have relied on to win national elections. And so, people like to think of women as this monolithic voting group, and they're absolutely not. Certainly Kamala Harris did better with college-educated women, but women overall were telling us consistently in the polling that their number one and number two issues were the economy, household expenses, and immigration, the border crisis, those everyday sorts of points of pain. Certainly the left tried to make abortion the number one issue for women, but it just wasn't, and that wasn't borne out in the election results. The other thing that was so interesting is President Trump increased his support with Latino and Black voters to the point where, he won Latinos. 46% of Latino voters backed President Trump, according to the exit polling. That hasn't happened since George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan. And again, that goes back to Americans of different genders, all different races, all different socioeconomic backgrounds. Everyone was feeling the pain of the bad policies of the last 4 years. Everybody was feeling this border crisis that we have. So this election, I think, was really about those policies and the policy choices. It wasn't about gender and it wasn't about race. And I think Democrats really need to take a step back and think about going forward, is the identity politics that they've based their entire party around, is that working for them anymore? Clearly it's not.
Yeah, it's not. And it's actually refreshing. Focusing on the policies is so much more important than playing this identity politics game. One more thing, one more race I want to talk to you about, because I know that you worked pretty closely on it previously. This is the Senate race in Pennsylvania. They just announced that Dave McCormick actually clutched that. How important is having a Republican from the state of Pennsylvania in the Senate and going forward?
Well, it's incredibly important. I'm very proud of Dave McCormick. He's going to be a fantastic senator, somebody with a deep policy background. He served on the Defense Policy Board, was the CEO of Bridgewater Associates, a large hedge fund, so he's got a deep finance background. And, of course, as you know, Pennsylvania is a very important state to the energy industry. Energy being the base layer of our economy, this needs to be one of the first things that we turn around, is the energy policies of the last 4 years that have strangled our domestic producers and really hurt our economy. And so Dave McCormick's going to be an excellent representative of that industry, of those interests, as well as of the state of Pennsylvania. And that's a great Republican flip.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, giving us your insights. Samantha Dravis, principal at AxAdvocacy. For our listeners, we have got to take a quick break, but we've got more for you, so stay tuned here on SuperTalk Mississippi.